Greetings and welcome to Outlaw Gamer Radio, the official podcast of OutlawGamers.com. This is the show where we live to play and play to live. I'm Brent Adams, joined by a man who found out the hard way after an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet in Mexico City that the markings can be erased, but the memories will always be with you. Mr. Lauren Baumgarten. Lauren!
Yeah. What's up, Brent? What's up, Brent? How are you? You've taken something beautiful and you've smeared it, for lack of a better.
I literally have smeared it,
for lack of a better pun.
Figuratively, literally. What's the difference? Who cares? It's the 21st century. Am I right or am I right or am I right?
You are right.
Welcome back from vacay, Lauren.
Thank you. Yes, I apologize to you and to all of our listeners for my travel time took longer than anticipated, and I was not able to get back for the tight schedule on which the show is produced, and so I apologize.
Yes, tight as a drum. The production of this show, tight as a drum.
Yes. So I apologize for not that the show's coming out a day late, but hopefully you will find it chock full of goodness, and you'll be glad that you waited.
It's chock full of something. Let's start with the garage. First up, we have the No Man's Sky Infinite Worlds PS4 trailer. It's a nice trailer. It's got lots of beautiful settings. It's got lots of intriguing gameplay. It's got interesting music. And it does a whole lot of stuff that would get you excited for No Man's Sky. The one thing it doesn't have is a goddamn release date. Lauren, am I right or am I right or am I right?
I really put this on the docket this week, Brent, honestly, because I sat there watching this thing thinking, if there, and I kind of knew there wasn't, because I feel like, so this was posted on our website, and I feel like if there was a release date, somebody would have put in the post, whoever posted it would have put in the post, release date for No Man's Sky. So I kind of had an inkling that it wasn't, but I watched this trailer and thought to myself, if there's not a goddamn release date, and I'm so excited for this game, Brent.
Yes, I am too.
But I thought, if there's not a goddamn release date at the end of this game, forget it, I'm not buying it.
That might be a little rash.
Extreme? No, yes. No,
that's what she said.
It's just, I'm super excited for this game, and I support Hello Games as to no end. I'll talk about this game from now until the end of time, or at least until it comes out. But I feel like more than any other game I've ever seen, I feel like maybe it's not even really a game. Maybe it's just a trailer factory they're running over there. But I feel like they're putting out trailers like every 2 weeks.
They didn't actually create a game engine. They created a
trailer engine. I feel like they're putting them out every 2 weeks, and it's great, but they're pretty similar. And I'm ready for a release date already. I've seen it now. I understand the worlds are infinite, which I also means I understand that you could put out an infinite number of trailers showing different planets and so forth. I understand that.
Most
rain.
Most video games are limited in the fact that they can only put out so many trailers before everything that's in the game has been put out in the trailer.
Right.
So there's that, of course.
We get it. We get it. Just put out a goddamn release date and then put out the game.
I either want to see profoundly different gameplay than we've seen so far, or I want the release date. I don't need to be sold on the game anymore. I'm sold on the game. I'm excited for the game. Mission accomplished. Where's the release date? And if you don't have the release date, then I don't know. I guess I guess that I am in the same place with you in that watching this trailer, I kind of felt like if you don't have a release date, then I don't really know what you're doing here. Moving on, Randy Pitchford has addressed, to a degree, some of the conspiracy theories, some of the more, let's just say, unkind claims regarding himself, Gearbox Software, the exchange of money for their work on Aliens Colonial Marines. And of course, this game was plagued with problems and was not very well received. And let's face it, people are flat out accusing Gearbox of pocketing the money and not really putting their all into the game. And Randy Pitchford talks a little bit about that and his perspective on the matter. And I don't know, Lauren, what did you think? Does he come off as sincere to you? Do you think that he's just saying, hey, here's what happened. And, sometimes you can spend money and time and have really good intentions and still make a shitty game. It can happen to the best, which is another way of saying it can happen to Gearbox.
Yeah, I kind of felt like this article ended when he said that he lost $10 to $15 million of his own money.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like at that point you're like, oh, okay. Obviously, you weren't. They're accusing him of embezzling. I do think. I mean, I do believe. I didn't hear him. I didn't hear him say this. And a lot of sort of assessing whether or not you believe somebody is nonverbal cues. Obviously,
certainly.
But he said he lost $10 to $15 million of his own money, and he explains like people make things that are bad. We thought this was like why. How does it benefit us to purposely make a game that's not good to what? To not make money? Like, I mean, I don't get the impression that they were able to enter Chapter 11 because of it and release some of their debt or, and
I think that to the uninitiated that there's often, I had a job many years ago. I worked at a mom and pop video store, which was a really sweet gig. If it paid like $85,000 a year, I'd still be there. But anyway, the store...
because that's what we get paid for doing this, in case you guys weren't clear.
Exactly. But the store was just as fast and loose a thing as you can imagine in terms of how it was run and how the accounting and everything worked. And everybody involved sort of talked about, this is like this store is actually losing money because it's better for taxes. It's good to have a tax write-off, a business that loses money. And nobody really understood what the tax code was that would explain how running a business losing money was actually better for you. But like everybody kind of makes that claim, and I don't know, like I kind of think it's like it's the same mentality that goes into like conspiracy theories and things like that. People would rather believe these vast, shadowy organizations are controlling things rather than face the horrific reality that sometimes things just go wrong, and that there is an element of randomness and chance in the universe. And I don't know, that's kind of what it smacks of to me. Like, I don't particularly see a conspiracy here. I just see a company that maybe didn't put quite as much focus or polish into the final product as they should have. And it's not like Gearbox alone is responsible for that. That game traded hands half a dozen times before we saw it.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that it came out and spoke about it. Mm-hmm. I think it's an interesting read for all you conspiracy theorists out there. But I do. I personally don't see any conspiracy except maybe a conspiracy of bad taste.
There is that, of course. Here's an interesting story. Something that I never expected to to have in the garage. Almost 10 years after it was released, Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic 2, the amazing follow-up to the original BioWare KOTOR Star Wars RPG, has received an extensive official update. Lauren, why don't you just run down some of the things that you can now do in KOTOR 2 on, I think PC, Mac, and Linux all got this update, didn't they?
Yeah, this is a weird one, man, and I have to say I never played this game.
Yeah,
but I have heard it talked about quite a bit, and now I'm debating. And it's actually on sale now, down from $9.99 to a low $7.49.
Oh, it's a steal
if you're interested.
It was a steal at $9.99, but come
US
on.
American dollars. What they've done to the game is actually apparently quite a bit. They've added achievements, of course. 37 achievements, Steam Cloud saves, which is great.
That's awesome.
But the big ones are native widescreen resolution support.
Wow.
Up to 4 and 5K, which I didn't even know 5K was a thing.
Yeah.
Controller support, Steam Workshop support, including...
Hold on just one second, because it's not just controller support, but it actually supports both... Xbox Series controllers, 360 and 1, but also PlayStation 3 and 4 controllers too.
Yep,
which is cool,
and more, and like other controllers as well. And then one of the biggest ones is the Steam Workshop support. So it says we proudly worked with the Restored Content mod team to have their famous TSLRCM, which apparently is described as a years-spanning project that aimed to return the game to its proper form rather than the sloppy stitched together version that was originally released due to publisher and pressure time constraints. So the mod adds a handful of endings and the infamous HK factory, among other things, and fixes hundreds of bugs. So all of this has been added to the game 10 years later at no additional cost. And the game is on sale.
For those who are wondering, that is the Sith Lord's Restored Content mod.
Good man, yes. So I don't know, Brent. I mean, this is am I wrong that this is widely regarded as one of the best Star Wars games?
Oh yeah. I mean, KOTOR 2, yeah. KOTOR 2 is a pretty. I mean, I would say that probably. I don't know. I think most people I know consider it superior to the first one. But yeah, KOTOR 2, that was a big honking deal, son. And it's remarkable to see. I mean, I guess I'd pretty much figured this game was end of life. I just never imagined that there'd be another official update, much less what we've seen here. So good on them. I'm wondering if this is there a reason that this has happened now? Has something shifted behind the scenes? Is there, I don't know. I would love to hear from Asper Media about why they're doing this now, and if there's anything else that we might have to look forward to. But anyway, they're not commenting as of yet, but perhaps we'll find out. But
indeed,
great news nonetheless.
Yes, indeed.
Speaking of conspiracies, Lauren,
yes.
In hindsight, we should have reordered these stories so that we could have that segue from the Randy Pitchford thing. But speaking of conspiracies, there's a really interesting vid that is making the rounds, showing off some of the gameplay in Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, specifically, what is it, the Deja Vu missions where you're playing as Snake from Metal Gear Solid, and part of the gameplay involves going around the base and finding, like on walls, on the roofs of guard sheds and things like that, the logos from the previous Metal Gear games. And apparently the gameplay involved is you shine a flashlight on those game logos, and the ones that have been directed by Hideo Kojima will fade out. And you're also talking with Master Miller over the radio, and he's providing some commentary and stuff. And basically, people are saying that Kojima knew that the rift with Konami was like all of this stuff apparently had kind of already happened by the time Ground Zeroes was done, because you can essentially erase his name. Well, not really his name, but you can erase the titles of all the games that he's directed, and there's some interesting and slightly ominous dialogue that goes along with it. The reference that I made at the top of the show about you can erase the markings, but the memories will always be with you. And I don't know, people are just kind of talking like the rift apparently that drove Konami and Kojima apart happened well before Ground Zeroes came out, and they actually made some commentary about it in the gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read this story other than where we linked to it, which is on GameSpot. But I mean, I just can't imagine what the hell else that would be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, other than an absolute direct reference to that, Brent. I mean, it's so overt. And the language is, thank you for your, he also says thank you for your support. Yeah. And
there's a Psycho Mantis reference where he says, "Oh, you seem to like Hideo Kojima games," which was, one of the really neat things about playing the original Metal Gear on the PlayStation was that Psycho Mantis would scan your memory card, and if he found game saves from other Konami titles or things like that, he'd have a comment about you playing, Castlevania or something like that.
Right, and I can't, and then it says exactly what you just said, followed by "thank you for your support."
Right.
I can't imagine what that would be if it wasn't what we're talking about. Again, I haven't read any more information. This story just broke within the last couple of days, and I'll be curious to hear if there's any kind of response or other theories or what have you. But at face value, at least, it seems pretty straightforward.
I agree. And it's not like, like we were just talking about with Metal Gear Solid. It's not as though Kojima hasn't broken the fourth wall in games before to great effect.
Yep.
And I wouldn't at all be surprised that it's happened here. And frankly, it actually kind of makes sense to me that it would have been something that was kind of a long time coming, and it's just that the public at large didn't really find out about it until they actually pulled his name from the from the game's website, and that's obviously what set off all the public interest and everything. And I kind of agree. I think that's probably exactly what's going on. The last little thing that's sort of interesting about this is the Metal Gear titles that Kojima didn't work on. There's this. They're all kind of treated,
don't disappear.
Yeah, well, they don't disappear when you shine the flashlight on, but also the commentary from Master Miller is like, must not be anything important, or
right? Yeah, that's right.
Kind of dismissive like that. So yeah, it's pretty cheeky in and of itself. But yeah, it's interesting. Go watch the video if you haven't already. It's a neat little Easter egg.
Indeed, it is.
All right, Lauren. Last up, this is a cool story. I saw Jess Condit talking about this a little bit, but
I know her.
Yeah, I've heard of her also. But set up this next story.
Yeah, so I thought this was really interesting as well, Brent. I don't know if it's going to be successful or not, but it's interesting. So there's a game called The Flock, FLOCK, just to be clear, that is theoretically being released this autumn. We don't have a specific date yet. And it is it's an asymmetrical multiplayer game. But the thing that is sort of most unique about this game is that there's an actual expiration date for the game.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a horror game in which everybody starts out sort of, I'm assuming on the periphery or in different places in the map, and there's sort of a glowing orb, and the first person to get to that orb, it actually turns into a giant flashlight. They now become the hunted, and everyone else in the flock is hunting them. And it's dark out, it's nighttime, it's spooky, it's creepy. And in the article we embedded, there's some alpha gameplay footage. Once that person is killed, I'm sorry.
Now hold on. Now what happens is the person who gets to the light first, I can't remember what they call it, like the champion or something.
Right, I can't remember what it's called either.
There's some title. But anyway, at that point, they have the ability to kill members of the flock, which they can do by shining,
kind of Alan Wake style,
shining the light on them. And if you are one of the players who is still a member of the flock, if you move while the light is shined on you, you die.
Oh, so I didn't catch that piece. But
yeah.
However, if a member of the flock dies, it takes away one life from the grand total of all the lives that are
like the flock.
The game starts out
in-game population, whatever that number is reduced by 1.
Right, and when that number,
which means
gets
one
to
less
0,
person can play the game at that point.
I don't think I caught that either, Brad.
Yeah. So, let's just say, as an example, that the in-game population of the flock is 500, and in a match, one person dies. That means that from that point forward, only 499 people can play the flock.
Can play the game simultaneously.
Correct.
Right, simultaneously. I'm sorry. Yes, I interpreted what you were saying as like no one else could buy the game, kind of thing.
Right.
And I'm not sure
that comes later.
Right. So when the in-game I'm curious to know what the number is going to start at. It could be it's arbitrary from our perspective.
Just be like however many people buy the game and load it up. Like however many people buy the game initially, they'll probably set some.
That is one way to do it. The original number might be 100,000. Who knows? But I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be what you suggested, Brent. Because at what point? So if only 1,000 people buy it in the first week, and then 1,000 people die within the first week. So here's the kicker: when the in-game population gets to 0, the game is over. The game is literally over. They are going to shut down the servers.
Can play it. No more people can buy it.
So no more people. Well. No, so the game. So no more people. Once it hits 0, no more people can buy it.
Yeah.
Once that happens, anybody who already owns the game will still be able to play it and get an end game scenario,
some sort of climax to the game
that they have predetermined. And once you've played the end game, you're then done with the game. And after, I'm assuming they're going to give it some amount of time, Brent, or after a certain, everybody has played the end game or whatever. The game will no longer be accessible at all.
Yeah.
So nobody else, if that makes sense. So if there's 10,000 people that bought the game, and the number gets down to 0, nobody else can ever buy the game again. And those 10,000 people will get to play the end story, but that's it, nothing else.
Right.
And the servers themselves will shut down. So there'll be no more multiplayer play once that number hits 0. And So because of that, Brent, I don't know if it would be the amount of people that bought it, because if 1,000 people bought it and then they got to 0 before,
no, you're right. Like as soon as I said it, I was like, no,
it doesn't work.
It couldn't
right.
be that. Like it'd have to be like if they were going to do something like that, number. It'd have to be like a multiple. It'd be like so like if 1,000 people buy it in the first week, we're going to multiply that number by 10 and say that's the theoretical maximum, because it's unlikely that 10
right,
times
or whatever
that number will ever purchase the game.
Yeah, so I thought this is a really interesting endeavor, Brent. I mean, one of the questions, the first question comes to mind is, would you buy a game that is going to a multiplayer game that is finite?
Yes, because everybody already does that already. The only difference between this,
it's called single player,
and every other multiplayer game that is out there is that they're just talking ahead of time about the fact that one day the servers are going to go dark and people aren't going to be able to buy it or play it anymore. Now, what's interesting about this game is that, and please understand what I'm saying, I'm not accusing them of just making this like a publicity stunt or something like that. They have built game mechanics around the idea of this game having a finite lifespan.
Like an actual end, not, we're shutting down the servers because not enough people are playing it anymore.
Yeah.
But there's an arc here that will end.
And that's what's interesting, because to me, acknowledging the fact that no multiplayer game, I mean, even World of Warcraft, even World of Warcraft will probably go offline
end at some point. Yes.
Yeah. But it's interesting to me that they are acknowledging the fact that people are going to get interested in the game, play the game, and then interest is going to wane. It's going to drop off, and eventually the game's going to go away. And they said, well, rather than just sort of pretend that that's not going to happen and not acknowledge it, why don't we build a game that has an end built into it? So as opposed to it just sort of fizzling out and going away, we'll give people a proper end. We'll do some sort of big game climax, and then we'll close out. We'll have closure to it. And that's a cool idea.
It is a cool idea. There's going to be a very delicate balance here between price point and when that time is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because the more popular your game is, the more quickly it's going to end. And so if the game goes, if it gets, reviewed extremely well and it goes absolutely bananas and it shuts down inside of 2 weeks, you might find yourself a little more upset that you spent $49.99 on it. I'm just making that up.
Yep.
Or if, and regardless of price, if the game doesn't ever reach that point, that unique aspect of that game becomes almost meaningless, right?
Right.
If you actually lose interest.
If it takes 5 years before they do this, then who cares?
And as far as I know, Brent, they have no precedent on which to base their thought processes,
their algorithm or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know how they're going to figure out. Is it 10,000 deaths or is it 100,000 deaths, or you know what I mean? Like, and the more you want to play the game, the more rapidly you're actually working towards the game's demise.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's an interesting sort of experiment. I'm curious to see what comes of it. I actually really kind of applaud them for trying to do something a little bit different, and also just tell people, the game is going to end, and that's okay. It's okay that we're going to play this game and have a really good time with it for a certain amount of time,
right? And
then it's going to go away. That's okay, because I mean, certainly, we've talked about on the show before about game preservation and all that stuff, and about how we want to have like all those experiences from those games and consoles that are no longer made, and that's one side of it, and that's completely valid. But it's also really interesting to see somebody take the other track with it and say, no, it's meant to not last forever, and that's valid too. It's just an interesting choice.
I agree, Brent. This game definitely has my interest piqued. I definitely am interested to see how it plays out. And honestly, I'm trying really. This is where Daniel Kaiser would insert some sort of flocking joke. But,
yes, he would.
I think I will avoid it and just get the flog out of here.
Oh, damn you! Damn you!
We are back in the clubhouse, Brent, and we have, guess what, a topic this week.
Yeah.
But before we do, guess what else we have?
A poll.
It's a poll, Brent.
I knew it.
We have a poll.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about the poll. Of course, last episode, we were talking about whether or not feature creep has harmed open world titles, and we asked you all to answer the question. Has feature creep harmed open world titles? With 15%, the number 3 answer was no. I want a rich experience with a lot of game mechanics. The number 2 answer with 20% was definitely many games would benefit from keeping things simple and focused. But the overwhelming majority of those who voted on this subject, 65%, and the number 1 answer said only when the game's design fails to keep things balanced.
People took the middle of the road, Brent.
Well, being in the middle of the road requires balance, and so does balancing an open world game with lots and lots of features and many other things in life. So thank you all for voting in the poll and for leaving your comments on last week's subject. This week's subject is another pretty interesting one, Lauren.
Yeah, this one comes to us from Kotaku, an author named Nathan Grayson, which I actually don't think is his real name. I think that's his superhero identity. But that just sounds like I think this guy was Robin at one point. I'm not sure.
Which means he's got a lot to look forward to.
That's right.
If you ever see anybody walking towards you with a crowbar, run the other way. That's all I'm saying.
This article is about a game that is not officially released yet. It's a game that's in early access called Rust. It is an open world, chaotic survival murder fest. Essentially, I have not played the game.
Wait, are you ready for political office now? Because
the article in question, is about the decision during early access in response to the lack of characters of color in the game. Apparently, everybody was white. And were they all dudes, Brent? Was the gender part of this? I can't remember.
I think originally they were all males. They have since introduced the females gender into the mix.
And as well as different racial profiles, different skin colors, and that sort of thing. And the interesting thing about this, Brent, though, is the creators of Rust chose to choose arbitrarily for you your race and gender.
Right.
And thrust it upon you, and then you are unable to change it.
Like an unsympathetic god.
Like that's exactly.
Here's your race, here's your gender. Go fuck yourself.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing here is, of course, that most games like this, most open world games where you have anything that has to do with character creation include race and gender as a choice.
Sure.
Here they have chosen not to, for several reasons. Brent, most of which is because it was the easiest thing for them to do.
Oh, I was going to say publicity. Yeah, keep talking.
Right. And up there right with that is the absolute publicity. No. It's actually so in this article, Kotaku spoke with Gary Newman, who is the game's lead, and basically he said they tried to do something different. They wanted a way to recognize people beyond their names, kind of a fingerprint is what he said. Yep. And they already kind of had this with voice, but they wanted to push it further. And they said they basically decided that the most equitable way to do this would be to sort of apply these different racial skins randomly. And right now in the game, they're applied evenly throughout the game. So I don't know how many different colors they currently have. Again, this is early access, so there's going to be more. But there has been some backlash to this. As a matter of fact, not an insignificant amount of backlash. Albeit, not everybody for sure, a minority. No pun intended.
I love how not sure you are.
I had to stop there for a second and think, oh my gosh, I just accidentally made a pun. Great. Now I've stepped into Daniel Kaiser.
Yep.
I've just stepped in it. It is the minority, but they have been a loud minority, and some people have been very offended by this and very upset. Some people, and Newman talks about how he thinks that part of this is probably people's desire to play with a certain type of character, whether that's representative of themselves or not. Yep. Certain people like to play with certain types of character. I know, for example, in case you guys don't know this, I am not African American, though I may sound like it. But typically, when I have an opportunity to make a in-game avatar and I get choices, very frequently I make it a black male and preferably with the largest afro I can find.
That's right.
Mostly because that's what I wish I was, but. But there are people who prefer to play with a different, a specific type, whether it's a gender. I know a lot of guys who like to play the female characters because there's not many of them, and they like them. They think that's badass. And so a lot of people tend to want to play a certain thing. And so some people he thinks maybe are a little bit upset about that, about the inability to play with what they choose. And then, one of the other things he mentioned is that because, and this is actually kind of funny, and I could see why this would piss some people off. They took the exact same character model. They didn't change any of the features or anything, and just sort of
gave it.
He uses the word blacked up.
Yeah. Which is another way of saying it looks like blackface.
It looks like blackface to people who have been playing the game. If you haven't been playing the game, you would never know.
It looks like somebody that did a less perfect makeup job of Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder is what it looks like.
Yeah, so if you've been playing the game for a long time and you're used to this character, this white male character, and all of a sudden he's the exact same character just with some skin tone, it can be misread as blackface and can be misread as insulting.
Right.
And so it's created this interesting dynamic, Brent, and apparently there's been a little racism coming through in the game, and there was talk in the studio about whether or not they should censor that. Which they ultimately decided not to do. So it's actually brought up some interesting situations within the game's world. And again, this is a game. Think DayZ-ish, in terms of like just being out there. Like your characters, I believe I haven't played the game, but you're just sort of out there, right?
It's an open world survival game.
Yeah, and so. I don't get the impression they're displeased with the sort of the challenges and difficulties that occur in a real world seeping into the game. I don't know, Brent. What do you think? Do you think it's odd to, it's one thing if a character is thrust upon you, like when we play Lara Croft, or that he uses Master Chief, or your story's built around this character,
and you play the character.
Correct. Or otherwise, typically you have a choice of what to do. What do you think about this whole? We're gonna tell you what kind of character you're going to be, and that's just what you're going to be.
I think that most of the analysis and criticism surrounding this is infinitely smarter than anything that actually went into the development of this game mechanic.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I don't know. I kind of feel like there's this fascinating sort of contradictory conversation kind of going on, and obviously there's political undertones to this, and and people are starting to kind of get up on a soapbox and say, like, if you play this game and you're not happy with the character you're dealt, you're racist. And there's one quote from The Escapist that really struck me as interesting. He says, Rust, assigning all these things randomly based on your Steam number, with the assignment being permanent. Just like in real life, you're stuck with what God dealt you. And I thought that was a really ironic statement, given the fact that there's all this controversy, at least in the U.S. I don't know how much this is making waves in the international news arena, but here in the U.S., there's this interesting controversy going on right now over Caitlyn Jenner, who used to be Bruce Jenner and was recently recognized with an ESPY award from ESPN. And there's all this discussion over the fact that here's a person who is not stuck with what God dealt them, and that they have decided to change based on what they feel they want to represent as, which in this case, Bruce Jenner now wants to be Caitlyn Jenner, and people are, debating over whether or not that is valid, and how much, society at large has to sort of participate in someone's self-identification as a woman versus a man, and, these kinds of things. And so it's really interesting that this game is kind of, I mean, like, we're literally kind of having a discussion about whether or not you can choose to be what you want to be, and this game comes along and says you don't get to choose what you want to be, and people are like really praising it as being high-minded and progressive and just really, really forward-thinking. And I'm like, I don't know, like, I think they kind of backed into this accidentally, and and they ended up like it stirred up a bunch of controversy because gamers are like, hey, we're used to being able to pick our races and genders and do what we want, and I think that this political component kind of got added in, and then suddenly it becomes a thing. It suddenly becomes like a social discussion. And I don't know, like, I think that there's a lot of interesting things that can come out of that social discussion, but I'm not really sure that the game was ever trying to be the avenue or the launching pad for social discourse that they're now kind of framing it as. I find myself a little bit skeptical about that. I think that that's happened, and I think that they're taking advantage of it, but I'm just not so sure that this was what they had always intended
their intention.
To be. Yeah,
right.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just being cynical, but
yeah, no, I don't think in the article he says, like, we put this in here with the specific intent of trying to, invoke in people the feelings of what it's like to end up as a minority despite their desire not to,
right.
I don't think he intimates necessarily
I think they're
was
just
their
responding
intent.
to kind of how it's evolved.
Right, and certainly making comments about how it's played out in terms of like, well, we didn't necessarily expect that it might have this, sort of reaction, but when it did, we were sort of discussing how do we deal with it, and it's certainly interesting. I can't think of another example. Can you, Brent, of a game in which you're sort of where you have to take a character, and not necessarily a comic character, but a more realistic character. Yeah. But it's not the same character. So it's not you and I both playing Nathan Drake, or I can play, you know what I mean? But like where there might be 5 or 6 or 7 models.
I cannot remember playing one. That's not to say that nobody's ever made one, but I can't remember playing one.
Yeah, I'm curious to know if our listeners can think of anything.
Some of the thing that kind of bugs me about this is how easily people want to, throw around like that. People want to throw around that accusation of racism and bigotry. I read it wasn't from The Escapist, but I can't remember which story, because I've read several pieces on this. But one of the stories I read, the analysis intimated that the only people who are upset about not being able to change their gender are privileged white males, and I found that really. I found that ironically bigoted in its own way. It's like, oh, okay, so let's just carve out a demographic of people and we'll just make some ad hominem attack. Like, you have no idea the kinds of people that are upset by this. You have no idea the players involved, their race or gender, whatever, and that kind of thing bugs me a little bit, because I found it completely constructive to the conversation, but. Despite what I was saying a second ago about kind of being skeptical as to some grand master plan to bring this about, it is interesting to give people no choice where they are used to having buttloads of choice. You play a game like Mass Effect, you play a game like SWTOR or whatever, and you can customize everything. It's like, what color pubic hair do you want? And you can do that. And it's interesting to sort of take a paradigm of character customization that some games, not all, but some games have taken to an incredible degree of customization, and then to suddenly take that away. And it's interesting to see how people are reacting to that. Now, whether or not this actually yields any kind of useful information about race, about gender, about societal stigma, and how we view those things, how we deal with those things, I don't know. I wonder about, as an example, like we talked about that scientific research study that used VR to basically place you in the body of the opposite gender, and the kind of just the sort of disassociative effect it would have on a person viewing themselves in the mirror as the gender they were not born with. And that the point of that was to, try to kind of help people imagine what it's like for human beings who have that gender dysphoria over their own gender identity. And, that absolutely was trying to get people to think. It was trying to wake people up. I'm not sure if that's going to occur here or not, but it will be interesting to see if anything comes out of it other than just the sort of, slight bickering that seems to be going on over it right now.
Yeah, I bet who's even more curious is the gaming company to see if it does anything for their sales. Yeah. No press is bad press, right? And this is certainly, a game that I had, perhaps heard of, but certainly wasn't paying attention to, that is now the main topic of conversation in our show. And so I do wonder if it's going to translate to sales for them or not. Certainly, I agree with you that one of the most interesting aspects to me is like you said, Brent, is less about the race and more about that idea of taking away choice, where typically gamers would expect choice.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I wonder if they will be able to survive that particular backlash, because if there's one thing that gamers repeatedly are banging their hammers about, it's choice,
especially PC gamers. I mean, that's one of the things.
Well, certainly as it comes to with an open world as well.
That's certainly one of the things about the platform that the PC gamers expect is a high level of customization in their games and so forth. And I don't know. I'm wary of making any kind of accusations or assigning any kind of motivations to a person who says that they're not crazy about. Well, okay, just as an example, there's a screenshot in the Kotaku article that we're linking to, written by Claptrap, who says, "How do I change my skin?" It says, "I'm black. I wanted to be white. Not trying to be racist. I was just wondering why I can't find it." And I'm really hesitant to make a big social commentary out of a statement like that, where it seems like other people are racing to make some sort of social commentary out of a statement like that. It's like, look, I'm used to being able to change my race and my gender and all this, and I can't find it. And I don't know, again, I guess I'm being really cynical about this, because it's almost as if it's like some used car salesman or something that's it's like, where's the antenna for this? Oh, it doesn't have an antenna. It's a feature, because without an antenna, now you can get local radio. You can only pick up AM and listen to that really good old-timey local stuff and none of that corporate FM bullshit, It seems there's a quality of that to it that I can't get over. I just can't kind of get over how they took features away, and then when people complained about it, they were like, oh, well, what are you saying? You only want to play as a white person? What are you, some kind of racist? It's like, no, I just thought I missed a menu setting or something. I thought it was a bug. There's a quality of that to it that I just can't stop thinking about.
That is sort of who we are as an internet, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I can't speak for the whole world, but I mean, that's America in a nutshell right now. There's
actually a very interesting article or a video, Brent, and it's a TED Talk that I think was posted maybe 5 days ago or something. Yeah. That one of our listeners posted on the OGS feed about, I think it's called "How One Tweet Can Ruin Your Life" or something like that, and it's about a woman. I think her name was Jessica or something. You probably have heard of her. I had not, but she tweeted something about going to Africa and getting AIDS, and oh wait, I'm white, so that won't happen or something. And she had like 150. She had like 150 followers on Twitter. She tweets sarcastic jokes or whatever, and she was being mocking. But you can imagine that a tweet that said, I'm going to Africa, I might get AIDS. Oh, wait, I'm white, that won't happen, or something like that.
Right.
Which she meant to be,
She meant to be kind of snarky or something.
Right. I mean, she wasn't. Anyway, I mean, you can imagine. She got on a plane. She tweeted that right before she got on the plane. She got off of the plane, and she was all over national news and had 1 million hits and whatever.
I gotcha.
But the TED Talk is a commentary on sort of what Twitter and social media is becoming versus what it was intended and what it began as, and that sort of thing. And it speaks to, it's actually an interesting video. It's worth watching, as are most TED Talks.
Cool.
And it speaks to exactly what you are talking about. Relative to that idea of wanting to jump on the bandwagon. I do have to say, Brent, that one of the first things I thought of when I read this article is, for me, and I like to customize things. Like I said, when I played Saints Row 4, me and my good friend Aaron, we actually created Turk and JD, and so we were playing as the two lead characters from Scrubs, and I loved it. It was awesome, and I love being able to do that. However, all I thought when I read this was whatever. I don't really care. If you had made me play Shepard as a woman, for example, I have no doubt that game would have been exactly as awesome as it was. Right. And so I just I personally was like, oh, okay, so that's what this game is doing.
I'm sure that's some sort of microaggression or something. I'm sure that you're doing something right now that most colleges in this country don't allow you to do. I don't know what they call it, but I'm sure it's wrong. You saying that you'd be fine with, any race, any gender, that's gotta be wrong. I don't know why, but I'm sure it is.
You're just pissed off and jealous because you've never played a video game as Turk and JD.
Truer words were never spoken. Welcome back. We're going to hit the road and talk about some of the games that we're playing this week. I'm going to throw first to Lauren, who's going to tell us a little bit about Rocket League.
Yeah, only a little bit, Brent. So I was out of town last week, as you know. I left actually fairly shortly the next day after you and I recorded our last show, and so I didn't get to do a lot of game playing since our last show. But what I did do, based on seeing OGSers, Outlaws, on the website talking about it quite a bit, was I made sure to go and download my free copy for you PS Plus owners of Rocket League, which is essentially car soccer.
Oh, interesting. I love car soccer on Top Gear.
It literally is car soccer, and I saw this as one of the PS Plus games, and I thought, well, that's just a really stupid idea.
Really? You've never watched Top Gear?
I had no interest in it whatsoever. So the game is, it's on PC, I know as well. I believe it's $20 on PC, I believe. And honestly, I didn't check to see if it was on Xbox. Like I said, it's the PS Plus game of the month through in the US through July. And I went and played it. And went through the tutorials, and it was a ton of fun. And I cannot wait. I'm dying to. I only got like an hour into it just to play the tutorials. I can't wait to get online with the Outlaws who play it. The one thing the game, I believe, and people are just loving this game left and right. I watched Angry Joe's review of it today. He was loving it. The only negative thing right now about the game, other than that the servers are so overburdened that that apparently they've been crashing. Yeah. Was right now there's no real clan support. Unfortunately, I'm hoping that eventually they put that in so we can customize our cars to have the old OGS logo on it, and we can rock an OGS team. But I had tons of fun playing it, man. I hope to have more to talk about next week because I'm really looking forward to trying to get online and playing with some of the other Outlaws.
Yeah, man. If I mean, like basically the reason this game exists is because of Top Gear. Because at some point, Hamster and Slow did a segment where they played football with, I can't remember what it was, like maybe like little Fiats or something like that. And they had this gigantic soccer ball and these, football, obviously for the international audience.
Everyone else but us,
because we play hand egg in this country. But anyway, they played fucking football, giant ball, giant goals, and these little Fiat cars, and it's fucking awesome. I mean, like it looks like I desperately want this to become a real sport. I think it looks so fucking fun, and the fact that somebody did a video game of it, best idea ever. Anyway, go on YouTube and look for Top Gear football with cars or something like that. You'll see what I'm talking about. Excellent.
Well, hopefully, don't forget, Brent. Go if you haven't done it already. Make sure and go to your PS4 in the next few days and add it to your library. So when you're ready, if you're not ready to play it now, at least when you are, you'll have it available.
Just keep talking, and I'll just do it while you talk.
Well, there you go. And now over to you, Brent.
Okay, I really actually don't have that much to talk about either because I ended up doing a restore on my gaming PC, and so I didn't end up getting all that much game time in this week. I thought I was going to play today, but I had forgotten to launch GOG, and so I launched GOG, and then it's got to install The Witcher, and then download the patch for The Witcher, which that new, 1.03, that new patch was just released. It's like 7 gigs or something. Adds a bunch of stuff, fixes a bunch of stuff, and I had like 10 minutes or something between the time that downloaded and the time we started recording, so I did not end up getting to play The Witcher 3 this past week. I have been playing Fallout Shelter ad nauseum. I've discovered that Fallout Shelter and games like Fallout Shelter are actually a terrible idea if you have any leanings towards OCD, which I do. And the thing that I ran into is, I think I mentioned that basically my original vault was a vocational academy, essentially. I had something like 150 plus dwellers, and maybe 100 of those were actually working in rooms producing resources for the vault, and the other 50 were just going through this endless series of training in the rooms to boost their special stats. And within the game, your special stats, special being an acronym for strength, what is it? Strength, perspective. I can't remember what P stands for. Endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, luck. And it's not perspective. I can't think of what it is right now, though. But anyway, the point is that there are rooms for those 7 stats that you can use to train them up. And I ended up creating an entirely new vault because I wanted to do this thing, because like everything kind of happens haphazardly when you don't have a plan ahead of time. And so like my strength training room was like on level 4 on the left, and my the P training room, with perspective, whatever it is that I can't remember right now, like that was on level 7, way over on the right, and then the charisma room is like back up towards the top of the vault, and it was just madness. And I thought, well, I mean, like these stats spell out a word. What I want to do is I want to have like strength, perspective, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, luck. I want to have like this nice order, like where, going down, like, levels 3 through 10, spells out special in my vault. And then
you have a problem.
And then like on the other side of the elevator, it would be the reverse. Like it would spell special going up levels 10 through 3. And that way it would be like really easy to just like keep them organized. And I would just move one group from one room across the elevator into the next stack. And then I would move everybody down one room. And I had like this whole manufacturing process worked out for how this would work. And I realized that basically I could never afford to do it. I could never afford to destroy all these rooms and then have to rebuild them again and level them up again and all that. And so I just started a new vault specifically so that I could do that. And I'm currently up to about 82 residents. I don't have quite the surplus yet that I really need all the training rooms. So I basically got my special and then special going up. I've got those rooms set up on either side of the elevator, and they're just sitting empty right now because I don't have that many dwellers. So it's been sort of a mixed bag. It's a bit like going to your high school principal's grave and pissing on it when you're like 23 years old and still angry about what an asshole he was. You get done with it and you're like, yeah, it's somewhat unfulfilling. I mean, I'm just conjecturing here, but
so first of all, you need help. You definitely need help. And the really fucked up thing is that when I go play this game, I'm going to have that in my head now. When it finally comes out on Android, I'm going to have that in my head, and I'm going to have to
learn
do that.
from my mistakes.
But here's what I really want to ask you, Brent.
Okay.
In your first vault, or in your second vault, but in your first vault, you said you have like 100 workers, right?
Close to 150.
Are you paying these guys?
No.
So essentially, you're a slave owner.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's the really interesting thing about Fallout Shelter. Because ostensibly,
here comes the rationale from the Southerner. Go ahead.
Ostensibly, what's going on in Fallout? Hey, man, my family didn't even get here till after that shit. I was with that wave. I was with that wave of Irish people that ended up getting pressed into labor in the fucking coal mines. Don't blame me for that shit.
I apologize to the Southerners for that comment.
Anyway, my point is that. My point is that what happens in Fallout Shelter is it's really interesting how it will turn you into sort of a fascist almost overnight. Because what'll happen is you'll have you can breed your dwellers. You can put guys and girls together in the living quarters and wait for the magic to happen. And if they've got high charisma scores, then usually the magic happens a little bit faster. But what's fascinating is that let's say you put a person like the guy and the woman, they both have, I don't know, like high strength scores and high agility scores or something like that. Their offspring tend to favor strength and agility. And so that leads to this whole selective breeding sort of program that you, without really thinking about the morality of eugenics and things like that, you end up doing this whole kind of selective breeding process to make sure you have strong dwellers that can run your power facilities and dwellers with a lot of agility to run your food production services and all this kind of stuff. And before you know it, basically you've created an Orwellian dystopian society for yourself. It's really funny.
That sounds funny.
It's great. It's really good. No, see, it's really funny as long as it happens in the video game. It's just when it happens in real life that it's horrifying.
That's a true story.
But that's Fallout Shelter. Hopefully you'll get to find out next month.
Yeah,
Fingers
you know
crossed.
what? Until then, you're actually banned for talking about this. I don't want to hear it. I do not want to hear it.
Enforcing that shit. So let's head into the sunset. It's that time. What do you got? Well, okay, now first you've got this kind of public service announcement thing you're going to do.
I do real quick, and I guess this could be my end of the sunset, but I did want to do a little PSA. Journey for the PS4 released the day we're recording this, as it is a day late, on Tuesday, June 21st. So if you haven't played that game, God damn it, go play. Even if you have, it's out on PS4, just so you know. Likewise, the album, the day of release is on sale for $1. directly from Austin Wintory. I don't know if it's only for one day. I couldn't verify that, but you should check it out. It is literally one of the best pieces of music, single pieces of music I have ever been the privilege to listen to, and so I highly recommend it. And then also, Brent, I wanted to throw out there for people that Ernie Klein's new book
is out.
Came out.
Armada.
Came out last week. I've got the audiobook. Will Wheaton is narrating it once again, who is it's awesome. It's like the book is the two books are not related, but they're for the same type of person, I think. And it's just listening to it, I'm only like an hour into it. It's an 11-hour book. But hearing Will Wheaton is like it's like I put on an old sweater. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It just felt so good to put him on again. So I want to let everybody know that Ernie Klein's new book Armada is out. A couple people mentioned this on the OGS
I'm
site.
losing my mind for that because my Audible credits don't refresh until the 26th of this month, which means I gotta wait 5 more days before I can get it. It's killing me.
That's right. We did. So a couple people mentioned this on the site. We did reach out to Ernie to see if he'd come back on the show and talk about Armada. He hasn't gotten back to us yet, so if and when he does, we certainly will invite him back on the show. And of course, hopefully, we'll have read the book by then. But we'll see if he's able to do that. And then my Into the Sunset, Brent. However, and this is not intended to. I'm not trying to pile on to Batman. I'm really, really not. It just seems to keep piling onto itself.
It's its own fault.
And that is in this last week, the Arkham Knight
we blame the victim.
That's Arkham Knight Batgirl DLC was released. It was $6.99 if you don't have the season pass. There are people on our website who said they literally finished it in 10 to 12 minutes.
The DLC?
The article the DLC, the Batgirl DLC.
That doesn't bode well.
The article we're linking to on Forbes magazine says they finished it in about 55 minutes, and the article is actually titled Arkham Knight Batgirl DLC should have been free.
No doubt.
And so this is also something of a PSA because I think people should know if they're looking at this what they're getting before they get it. I mean, 45 minutes or whatever of story content, I personally think is not unreasonable for $7. And additionally, I'm just shocked. I'm just utterly shocked. We keep hearing that the PC patch fix for Batman Arkham Knight may not likely be until September, maybe even as late as November. Significant amount of time after the game is released, and I'm just shocked that Warner Brothers and Rocksteady are not doing something like giving this DLC away for free to try and make up for it. And so, Brent, I just think, it's just they just keep fumbling this all the way around, and it looks like the DLC is going to be no exception. Yeah,
that's very disappointing. And I was, I don't know, just. I don't like you. I'm not trying to just pile on, but it just seems like they cannot do anything right when it comes to this freaking game.
Bad choices. Yeah. All right, Brent, what do you have on for your Into the Sunset?
Okay, so my Into the Sunset is a Skyrim mod that sounds pretty incredibly epic. I'm linking to an article on PC Gamer that'll tell you all about it if you're interested. But this Skyrim mod is called The Forgotten City. It is a time travel murder mystery. It sounds incredibly epic. 30 new characters, 1,200 lines of dialogue, moral choices, blah, blah, blah. Here's the quote I'm going to read you. The Forgotten City is a lore-friendly expansion to Skyrim with a dark, non-linear story in which you'll discover and explore an ancient underground city, explained its creator. It's designed as a murder mystery in which players must search for clues, interrogate suspects, and fight monsters, and also you travel through time. It's just one of many really impressive sounding mods for Skyrim. Of course, I haven't been playing that so much lately since I moved over to The Witcher 3. But I think once I'm ready to put The Witcher 3 down, I might have to reinstall Skyrim so that I can have a go at this because it sounds and looks very, very cool. So anyway, if you're playing Skyrim on PC, if you're looking for something to refresh the experience a bit, get you back in, give you a good excuse to go back and play, Forgotten City might be the ticket. So go check that out.
I'll be curious to see if you are ever actually ready to put The Witcher 3 down once you get into it. It is also a game that supports mods,
which is fantastic because there's so much there that you could do with mods in that game. It's really it would be an amazing platform to build on. I tell you what else would be a really amazing platform if, and I mean this game's not on PC, but if it were ever to come on PC and support mods, Red Dead Redemption would be amazing.
I almost put the video. There's a video out there, GTA 5 homage to Red Dead Redemption in honor of the 5th anniversary of the game. And
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. I almost put it on the docket because I watched it, and it didn't have any real value except for the fact that I watched it and got a tiny gaming chubby when I just heard the music from Red Dead Redemption and saw John Marston. And
maybe we should do a Kickstarter to just port the game ourselves. You know, how expensive could it be?
I don't know, but Shenmue just got 5.6 million or something. I think we could do better than that for Red Dead.
I would hope so. Good Lord.
Indeed. All right, Brent. With that, we're going to wrap it up and call it a show. As usual, we want you guys to chime in on everything we talked about today, whether it's the Skyrim mod, The Forgotten City, the Arkham Knight Batgirl DLC, the release of Journey on the PS4, or Ernie Klein's book Armada, Fallout Shelter, Rocket League, the choice that the developers of Rust made to force their race upon you, the game The Flock and its asymmetrical multiplayer with an expiration date, Metal Gear Solid 5, and I wouldn't even call it an Easter egg, but the mission referencing specifically Kojima leaving Konami. Also, the update to KOTOR 2, Randy Pitchford talking about Aliens, Colonial Marines, and No Man's Sky releasing yet another trailer with no release date as of yet. We want to hear what you guys think of that and any topics related to gaming. As usual, he's going to be Brent Adams. I'm going to be Lauren Baumgarten. And remember, you don't stop playing because you get old. You get old because you stop playing.